Satu, thanks for joining us for this fireside chat. By way of introduction, Satu's had a really incredible career. She spent years heading up the L&D and management development functions at Pure Storage, at Meta, at GitLab, before joining ZoomInfo in a similar role leading the global talent management, talent development teams. Recently, though, she took on a very cool new role as the leader of ZoomInfo's AI transformation within the HR function. And so her day-to-day work has expanded from traditional L&D to enterprise-wide AI transformation, building partnerships with IT, figuring out what's next for AI and HR. And that's really where I want to focus this conversation. She's pioneering a new way of working. So really excited. Thanks, Satu, for joining us.
Thanks, Alexei, for inviting me. Excited to be here.
So you have a very cool new role. Tell us about it. What does it look like on a day-to-day basis? What are some early successes that you've seen so far?
Sure. Well, what's most exciting is that every day looks quite different, which is really enjoyable for me. So, but some of the common threads is that I help our teams, our employees, to get comfortable using AI in a meaningful and safe, responsible way in their work, so that they can get more done in their days. And some days, my hours are filled with literally training our teams how to use AI or different AI tools. Or finding use cases, because not everything should be done with AI, even if it's possible. It might not be the most meaningful way. Sometimes I'm using more time on change management when I'm driving some new initiatives or communications. And I have to say, one of my favorite things is when I get to build my own AI agents. That's become one of my favorite things to do. So that's what I do in a nutshell. So I really get to leverage my 20 years in learning and development, and obviously the change management aspect of that as well, while leveraging some of my newly acquired skills in AI.
Yeah, and so get into some of the details with us. What have you seen as like early wins for ZoomInfo that perhaps other people can take a look at that have come from you now being able to focus entirely on this space?
Yeah, so I think it helps that we were an early adopter. We've been using some kinds of AI tools, almost 3 years now. Ever since ChatGPT came along, we hopped right on board, and we did get enterprise licenses really early on, which I think is key when you're talking about using AI in your work. Because you do need to take that extra step to make sure that your information isn't just going somewhere. It stays safe in your own enterprise grade environment. So that's one key step to take for sure. And then allowing folks to experiment with it. Obviously not for years. That cannot be productive either. But at least early on, I think it's key to let folks explore and just get comfortable. This is a new cool technology, and it does take a while. Ethan Mollick is actually saying that it takes 10 hours for you to experiment with AI. This probably goes with many other tools as well, that you really get a hang of it. So what I'm noticing often when I talk to employees, they might start by saying, oh, I'm not technical. I can't use this. I don't even know where to begin. So then I just meet them where they're at and share my screen and work with them and show them, like, let's do this together. Well, click here, do this, write this, and see what it comes up with. And seeing those light bulb moments, like, oh, now I get it. Oh, so I can do this? Yes. And then you start building it from there. So I think that's the key, to meet the employees where they're at, because there are understandably different, very different skill and comfort levels where they get started. And also some folks might have more concerns about the data privacy, for instance, which they should. I mean, every professional should be extremely mindful on what they put in any kind of a tool, whether it's AI or any kind of a tool or site for that matter. So really explaining that if you do this and if you put in this in here, who gets to see it? So talking through those access controls, for instance, to help alleviate those fears is also a key part of the change management.
Yeah, well, let's go here, because I really like this focus on experimentation. I hadn't heard Ethan Mollick sort of 10 hours, but that totally makes sense. Really, you just got to get into it, start playing around. That's really what drives it. You know, one of the fascinating things about you, Satu, is that you've spent 20 plus years in L&D, where there sits a lot of expertise around how do you help people shape new behaviors. And one of the challenges with all of this is, we are asking people to radically redefine how they work. And I don't always have the time to figure out how to radically redefine their work. There's a habit formation issue and a habit formation challenge that's here that really you are uniquely poised to help people sort of through on the adoption curve. And I love both this insight around, you really have to meet people where they're at, so, like, depending on what their unique set of objectives are. But I wonder if there's any other insights that you can share from your background in L&D for so long, and how do we help to the change management? How do we help to the habit formation curve when it comes to AI transformation?
Yeah, so I'm definitely using my good old change management tricks that I've picked up over the years, like that Kubler-Muller change translation curve, like really thinking about the emotions that people tend to face at different types of different times of the transition of any kind of a change. So some of them might be feeling a little bit lost, and then I might try different techniques. Some of them might actually be really excited about them, about this kind of an opportunity. So then I go in with all full gear, like let me show you how to build an agent, for instance, if they're already a little bit further along on their change curve. So that's one thing. And then also, I think in order to build those habits, I think it's key to use really business relevant examples. Like I'm never just walking in and giving them some random examples of how other companies are using AI or how some other function might be using it. But I really spend time thinking about, okay, so this is your role. Tell me a little bit about your key pain points, some really mundane tasks that take hours of your day or week. And then try to help them identify where could AI give them a lot of lift in doing those mundane tasks for them. So I think the relevancy is key in building habits and really finding those pain points. I like asking, like, so what are some really draining tasks that you just dread doing? So let's start from those and see what we could come up with leveraging AI to do those, so that it could give you more time to do things that you are really longing to do, but you never really have enough time to do those more strategic tasks, for instance. So those are a couple of ideas. And then I think it's also helpful to run some hackathons with the whole team. So both identifying those opportunities with individuals themselves one-on-one, but also meeting with whole teams and brainstorming together and finding those opportunities. That has also helped in building those habits.
Every HR leader that I'm talking to that has achieved a meaningful level of AI adoption says hackathons are 100% the way to go.
Yeah.
And I think the insight there is we're so busy doing our own work generally that creating the literal headspace and time to dedicate to learning and frankly play is a really profound way of getting people through that comfort, getting people through the emotions. And I love the Kubler-Ross change curve. It's that I hadn't thought about the emotional journey that everyone really is on amidst this change, and then meeting them, whether they're in, denial stage still, which plenty of people are, or, have progressed through the bargaining and or all the way through acceptance, sort of figuring out where they are, helping them there. One of the insights that has been offered to me is you can't teach new technology with old tools. I saw this morning that Citigroup mandated 40,000 employees getting prompt engineering training. Like a good foundation, a good basis, but it really feels like this experimentation, getting your hands dirty, play, are what is actually going to drive meaningful adoption here. What have you seen work to increase fluency, to increase comfort, or anything else?
Yeah, so prompt training is definitely key, because what you put in is what you will get out. So we've invested in offering that kind of a training for our employees. And then also what I always emphasize is that you still need to use your own human expertise to validate the output. So yes, prompt training is a key part. How do you prompt in an effective way and give it enough context and whatnot? But you still need to use your own expertise. You can't just take what it gives you. Like this goes with anything, any kind of a tool. Heck, even with humans. Like if you would ask a colleague for or any kind of an expert for advice, you wouldn't just blindly go with it. Like you would still want to validate it. That is it fitting your purposes, and do you still need to edit it or add something in order to call it a day, and before you would use it as your final work product. So same thing here. You do want to use some time to validate the output and add to it, maybe change something, maybe even remove some parts, and make sure that it's using the right sources. I mean, when I'm prompting, I like using examples like, tell me what your sources are. What did you use as sources? Where did you get that information from? And then if you could ask that from a human, they might get a little bit annoyed, but these bots, they don't. So I don't mind asking it several times that way to make sure that it's citing the right sources and it's not hallucinating, for instance. And then also when I'm building agents or if I'm using systems prompts in general, I always put in things like, if you don't know the answer, don't guess, just don't. Just say, I don't know, or something like that. But so there are definitely tricks to do that as well. But yes, we still need humans for sure to validate the output that it gives, and also to sprinkle it with our own expertise and context that it just wouldn't know. It knows what we've trained it to know. So we need to keep that in mind as well.
Let me take this in a different direction, Satu. And you really are at the cutting edge of a new pattern here. I've started to see this role pop up in a few different places, right? You're starting to see a few large enterprises combine people and IT, or combine people and AI. Someone famously, Jackie Canny, but she's not alone. And I'm starting to see roles like yours pop up, right? Zapier has done a lot of work defining AI champions. Smartsheet just launched a new role like this. I'm sure you know more colleagues that are at the forefront of this wave. And it's really just been in the past 6 months that I've seen this title or role emerge.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because it used to be, the domain of IT in a way. And so I'm curious twofold, why all of a sudden is this in the ether? Why are people caring about this now and sort of creating space for this role? And what do you think makes a company ready to invest in a role like this? Or, you're a very senior leader at ZoomInfo, to take someone with your level of expertise and divert them from what you were doing around all of the leadership and management development to this showcases how much of a priority it is, right? So where does a company need to be in order to feel good or ready to make that investment and shift?
Well, I would say for some companies, if they don't quite feel ready to make somebody full-time dedicated to this type of role, maybe it's combined with another role like head of learning and development or something along those lines. I think that's one way of looking at it. But when you're asking why is there such a big shift and focus on these types of roles right now, I think it's because AI is not just another tool. It's changing the way work gets done. So that's why it would be a whole lot for IT or any one function to take that on. It would be almost impossible, I would say. And I would say it's not just IT and HR that needs to be playing along and collaborating effectively. It's also engineering. It's also legal, because there are so many legal risks and especially privacy concerns that need to be alleviated. So we're all working together closely to make this happen, because it's again not just a tool that we got added into our tool belt, but it's really shifting how work gets done. And the way I see AI, it's like my teammate. I talk to it, like I collaborate with it. It's definitely more than just a tool.
Actually, one of the things that calls to mind is how important management and leadership skills are in this new age. Because the tools, the ways of interacting with AI are traditional leadership skills. Can you be very clear with your expectations of what you're looking for?
Right.
You give feedback in a meaningful, effective way so that you get a different version of the output that you're looking for. Can you prioritize effort so that the AI is not spending cycles going down the wrong direction and making decisions? One of the, you uniquely sit at this vantage point of looking across the HR ecosystem to identify where's the highest leverage points for transformation. And so one of the questions that I that comes up in a lot of conversations that I have with senior people leaders is where do we start? There's almost a paralysis of, look, I need to build my AI strategy, or I need to figure out everything before jumping in.
Yeah.
Some of the answers like just get started, but given that you have such a broad spectrum of places to play, how do you think about where the greatest opportunities within the HR ecosystem are for fast AI adoption, for fast transformation? Where do you think the highest leverage points are?
Yeah, HR definitely has lots of really exciting use cases to leverage AI, because so many of our workflows are repetitive and very rule-based, which are really key prerequisites to leverage AI. It's hard to do that if nothing is documented, or if there are not certain steps in a process that you take. And that's not really the case with most HR processes. By law, they have to be kind of documented too, and there are certain steps that need to be taken. So talent acquisition, obviously, things like interviewing, scheduling, for instance, onboarding, lots of repetitive tasks, and also highly documented. Those are some key use cases. Most companies also have some kind of HR ticketing process that also, same thing, very repetitive, and can somewhat easily at least pull some of the most commonly asked questions and even let either AI answer them, or at least craft a response, and then a human will validate them. So it should bring quite a bit of benefits. So I think it's key to split those work flows into tasks to be done, as called in project management. I think it's helpful to leverage actually a lot of best practices from project management when you're trying to start doing this work. Jobs to be done, and thinking in agile way, and not striving for the perfection, but really identifying what are some of those low-hanging fruits, some MVPs, minimum viable products, that you can create somewhat early on to show proof of concept, because I think you need those initial wins and almost like test cases, so that you know what's working, what's not working, and where can you iterate. But again, the key is not to just use AI randomly everywhere just because everybody else seems to be doing it, because that can be costly too. But really identifying where is it meaningful, where are those kinds of repetitive processes that take so much time, that could free up that valuable time for humans to do something more human-centric that AI couldn't do as well. So that's where I would start.
I'm going to extend with this product metaphor I'm going to stay with that for 1 minute. One of the core functions of a good product leader is to prioritize what can get, or what should get done, because so much can get done.
Yeah.
And AI can do so many different things.
Yeah.
Do you have maybe prioritization frameworks in mind that can help folks make the decision pretty concretely around which piece of the whole funnel to start with, or any additional ways of helping people make that decision?
Yeah, so pretty early on, we create just a super simple 2x2 matrix with one axis, the business impact, and then on the other axis, the difficulty to implement. And then we just plotted these kinds of potential use cases around that. So super simple. Anybody can do that. But it gives you a good lens into, that's kind of like a nice to have, like, okay, that would bring us a lot of business impact, but it would take way long for us to implement that. So maybe we'll put that on the back burner. So it can help you to create almost like a prioritized timeline of initiatives that you can start tackling. And then you can also start including decisions on build versus buy, because many companies just wouldn't have the resources or the capabilities to build the needed tools, for instance, or technologies internally.
You stole the question right out of my mouth. I love a good 2x2. But yes, the other hot topic is, what do you build versus what do you buy? And it's a pretty strategic question, and it has to do with how much resources you're willing to spend, either in terms of time and energy in building, or the opportunity cost of that on other things you could be doing, and instead purchasing. And so, how do you think about that decision, and how should others?
Yeah, so I think it really depends what line of business are you in, and do you have access to engineers internally, and Maybe even, do you use AI in your own products? Is your company itself in the business of offering some AI related solutions? So if it is, maybe you can find some interconnections between what you sell and develop externally and what you might actually develop and almost test internally, which might eventually end up in your external products as well. So I think that's one thing. And then there's also the speed aspect, especially if you don't have access to internal engineers who might be able to develop solutions for your internal use. It just, I would imagine, would just take so long to start building those yourself. So I think then it's a clear answer to look for buying solutions, but I would be extremely mindful what to buy. And I always, AR or not involved, I would never buy something without talking to the existing clients of that company and really ask those tough questions. So what's working, what's not working, and what do they do when things fall apart and whatnot. So I think that's a key tip. And pretty much everybody these days seems to say that, oh, we're AI first. Well, okay, tell me about it and how do you use AI? And so that it's not just a shiny tool that they added on later. So I would be looking at like truly AI native companies that have developed their solutions with AI in mind from the beginning, rather than something that they just added on later on as an afterthought, because everybody else is doing that too. So
I will say that as an AI native vendor, this is one of my biggest pet peeves, because the complexity behind a good AI product, our Pascal looks like one entity that you talk with, but there's 50 plus agents running around in the background, carefully orchestrated and executing different workflows to make it really seamless. The complexity is such that it's hard for both people to just tack on and say, oh, we are the best in class AI solution, because it requires a different way of thinking and different architecture. And it takes a lot of effort to build. Actually, there's some research on this, which perhaps is self-serving, but doesn't come from me. It comes from MIT. There was a really interesting study in July about 95% of AI pilots failing. And another, this sort of floated on the ether, but another sub-point of that I think was missed was that external implementations were twice as likely to be successful as internal implementations, because it looks like AI can do things, but the last mile of getting it production quality is very challenging.
Yeah, I also saw those studies. I think for both, whether it's an internal or external implementation, you just really need to get to the bottom of what are you trying to solve for, rather than just jumping into building or buying a tool that would maybe solve something that you were trying to solve for. So I think it's worth really spending a good chunk of time from the get-go. Like, what is the problem? Like, really defining that from the beginning. Nothing earth-shattering there, but still, oftentimes people just tend to move too fast, and then they realize later on that, oh, actually, what were we trying to accomplish again? And then it might have been worthwhile to stop for a hot second to define what are we really trying to do here, and scoping that out, and what's not in scope too. That can often be equally important as well, and then choose the right solution accordingly.
That's that good product thinking again. So I want to perhaps take us in a different direction here. The HR function has a historical perspective of being a risk mitigation oriented function, right? Obviously, there were parts of the HR remit that were really more proactive and developmental, but it all rolled up to let's reduce the cost and exposure to the organization in one way or another. We're entering a world where there's steep pressure to use AI for something, right? Whatever the problems, start engaging in it now. And all of these systems are relatively nascent in that this whole ecosystem is a few years old. Now, it's very clear, at least to me, that these are not going away. I don't believe people that say this is all hype. I think the train has left the station, get on it. But there's some tension there, right? Because HR both has the opportunity to be at the forefront of how are we redefining work, right? And it is also historically not always, or it has historically taken that risk mitigation perspective. And so I'm curious how you think about that balance from an enterprise AI transformation lens.
Yeah, so at first you have to get those initial building blocks in place, making sure that you have enterprise-grade licenses so that your employees aren't just using the free AI services out there, the free AI tools, because again, there's a reason why they're free, and there's also a reason why these enterprise grade licenses cost something, because again, they do keep your information secure within your own enterprise. So that's the cost that you should be willing to pay for that information security. And still, obviously, you can't just call it a day within each company, especially when we're talking about legal or HR related information. It can't even flow freely within the company. So, or even within that same function, like there's HR information that because of my role, I shouldn't have access to. I don't even want to have access to. I'm all about on the need to know basis. So then you still need to make sure that the data is securely controlled by different levels of access, depending on your role or your level, whatever the criteria might be. So we also take steps to ensure that. So those are some key considerations that you just need to take from the very beginning. And you might also want to invest some time in creating some kinds of safe AI use policies, and also to train employees on what does safe AI use mean. So those are some concrete things that I think anybody should start doing pretty early on in their AI journey.
And can we go one step deeper into that safe AI guardrails or safe AI policies piece? What goes into that? What does it look like? How detailed does it need to be?
I would say as long as you have the key building blocks in place, like what data gets used and where does data get stored, how long does it get stored, who has access where, how do you log into certain systems that use privileged data, for instance. I don't think it's about the length. I think that's where some companies might stumble if they think that you either have to have a 50-page policy or not. So I don't see it that way. As long as you have some basic guardrails in place, I've actually heard some best practices from some industry experts saying that, I mean, it can be even just 1 page long, as long as you have something, at least just as you have the key criteria in place. What are the key risks to really be mitigating? And then it's better than not having any kind of a policy at all. So that's what I would advise folks to do.
Great. We all have the experience that AI systems with a huge amount of context and data access really are so much more powerful, right? And you're sort of thinking critically around, hey, what systems have access to which pieces of information is a really important one, because that's what, creates value, right? It's the added expertise and context on top of the foundational models sort of for training. Which leads us into another challenge. At an enterprise level, when you've been around a long time, when you have a lot of documents that are out of date, how do you think about the knowledge management issue? Because this is sort of a classic garbage in, garbage out problem. If you are giving the AI bad context, well, it's going to give you bad answers.
Yeah, for sure.
So how much of that do you have to get done? What does that look like? Any specifics that you can share about, I guess twofold, what is that process? And two, how much of that, if at all, that needs to happen before you start implementing AI solutions on top of it?
Yeah, you're so right, because if you put in outdated data, outdated documents, and you expect the AI to come up with some updated results, no, it won't do that. Like, sure, I guess you can use AI to first update the documents, but you still need to tell it what does update mean, what does change. So I at least just always make sure that whatever I upload, if I'm building an agent, for instance, and I'm uploading documents to train it and to give it enough context, I just glance them through and make sure that when was this last updated, like just almost like do this kind of a just quick glance through test, and if something isn't up to date, I just don't either use it or I will update it immediately or ask somebody else to do it, who depending on whose expertise area that falls into. Because if I don't take that extra step, I will know that it won't be meaningful, the output that I will get from it. And also, I also know that it will be much more difficult to do that later on. I might think that, I will update that later, but no, I'm at least become a stickler that I don't put anything in if I know that it's not up to date. So that's how my mind works at least. So that has helped. But I think the key thing is to include as much context as just like you would with your human colleagues. You just can't expect somebody new to a role, for instance, or a new employee for that matter, to know what they don't know. So same thing with AI. You need to teach them what certain things mean and be somewhat specific. And one of the best ways to do that is to really lay out what are you trying to accomplish here. So I get really specific with my prompts, especially the systems prompts. This is your role. This is your goal. Don't do this. This isn't in your scope. And use these documents and use these documents only as your references. So, but yeah, I don't think there's any one way. And I would also say it can be pretty labor intensive for any company to run a whole knowledge management journey before they would do anything with AI. I wonder if that's a better way to do that is in phases. When you're doing something with manager development related, for instance, then make sure that those related documents have been updated rather than trying to update all the single document in your whole company. That might take a while.
And by the time you finish the last one, the first one needs updating again.
Yeah. Right.
I love the frame of treating AI like a junior intern, like a really smart and capable junior intern that you have to corral in the right direction and feed the right information and manage in that way.
Yeah.
So I want to pull us to a close here, Satu. Thanks again so much for the time here. I'm wondering if there are any final lessons or thoughts on AI transformation that you've learned and want to share with anyone.
I would just say start from somewhere. I think that analyzes paralyzes might be preventing a lot of folks doing more productive, advanced things with AI, because I don't think there's any one way that works for everybody. So find a way that works for you and your company, again, in a safe, responsible way. And meet people where they're at, because folks will be at different levels of their AI journey. They might have their own different reasons why they may not or may do want to get on board. So meet them where they're at and help them get through that, whatever that might require. If it's enablement, if it's comms, change management, different kinds of tools. So meet them where they're at, I would say. And then also leverage the community. There's so many of us who are figuring this out. So more than ever in my career, I've actually noticed that folks are really willing to share their best practices as well. Reaching out to me. I've been also reaching out to folks. So don't try to figure it out alone. That would be my other tip.
You heard it here first. Reach out to Satu. If you need help thinking through this, she's around to help and share notes. Listen, Satu, really appreciate the perspective here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Alexei. That was fun.